Hello and welcome to another episode of Versus, sponsored by the Modern Nerd. I am Sir Slice, and I have a very special guest here, Mr. Hadi Williams. Now, you may be asking yourself, who is this guy? Well, I'm going to tell you. He is the creator and host of a sketch comedy discussion series on Fox Soul called Unpacked. He voiced numerous characters in Resident Evil 7 Biohazard and The Evil Within 2. Recent TV appearances include Rookie, Feds, and SWAT, and he is an award-winning actor slash filmmaker, excuse me, at the Martha's Vineyard Film Festival, sponsored by HBO in 2018, Best Picture winner for Mid City Blue, and the Studio City International Film Festival 2017 for the movie Runner Runner, amongst many other accolades that we will go over here today. Hadi, how are you?
I'm wonderful, sir. So great to see you. Thank you for having me. It's a joy to be here.
Excellent. I am so happy that we finally got to caught up again. We met a couple weeks ago at the Full Sail Hall of Fame, which was a really fun thing to do and really cool time. So anyone out there who wants to know more about Full Sail, check it out. I definitely recommend it. But enough on that. It's time to talk about you, sir. So you are, I mean, an actor, a writer, sketch comedy. You've done so many things, and you've told me so many about them. But let's start a little bit ways back. What was your first passion? Was it writing? Was it acting? Like, did you decide like I want to be in entertainment in this specific field, or was it like one thing? What kind of inspired you?
Oh, it was absolutely theater is where it began. Absolutely acting. Really, before I even had like a full understanding, I think, of what being an actor was, I was kind of pushed into it at a young age. And in kind of like, I remember there's video, if you go back to like me being like 6 years old, the Stage Door Theater here out in suburban LA was probably my first time like on an actual stage performing a spiritually themed interpretation of The Wizard of Oz.
Oh,
Uh, but it led to, I think, me having like a just enjoying it. And later, what happened was I was about 12 years old, and I'd asked my parents if I could take acting classes, and they were kind of open to it and receptive to it, and it just began really there and finding that like I really enjoyed. I think it was the combination of the freedom that it allowed, and then also being able to yeah, just experiment with character in different ways, and it just I got hooked on it.
that's cool, man. I wish I had one of those experiences when I was a kid that was like, I'm gonna do the thing, but it took me a little bit longer to kind of find my passion, which was it enjoying everyone else's passion and doing what I'm doing now. So
That in its own right is very is special, and for me, I also the thing though too, I discovered it at a young age, but then I also discovered the challenge in the real pursuit of it at a young age as well, because it was
okay.
like I began taking classes, and that kind of led to getting an agent, and that led to like professional auditions, and it also led to like professional rejection, and being like, oh, this is so fun, I love it. Being like, wait, why don't they like me? Why don't they let me do it? And really being discouraged by that around like 13, 14.
Oh
And
man.
it really took, I think, going back to theater in high school and being able to just play and enjoy that, that led me to eventually like wanting to pursue theater in college. But there was a point where I was like, oh, this isn't fun. Like this isn't what, yeah, the juice of what I enjoyed, because again, trying to navigate it, professionally, it's just a different, it's just a whole different game
Yeah.
altogether. Just like, oh, I love doing this.
So you grew up in LA?
Well, outside of LA. So
Well, LA area.
yeah, yeah, LA area. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So that meant so you probably had a little bit more exposure to it than some people say growing up in, the Midwest or something like that. Now, is anyone in your family also in entertainment in the industry at all, or were you the first to kind of really be like, I want to be an entertainer, I want to do something like that?
Yeah, I am like my dad. He's been a musician, and he was involved in the music industry when he
That's
was
awesome.
young, like on the East Coast. But no, as far as like family kind of connections and someone moving you into it, no, it was very much of something that I wanted to do. And even my parents, they were supportive up until when I got older and was like, no, no, I really want to do this. And like, wait, 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 we want you to do what you want to do, but like hold on, are you sure you really want to do this?
Yeah.
Because, the path of this is so uncertain that, of course, for a kid to tell their parents that they
Yeah.
want to, really double down and invest in this, often raises alarms in their minds of like, how are you going to support yourself? How are you going to survive, etc.
Yeah.
And yeah, I very much went through those experiences of scraping by barely in order to continue the pursuit. So those fears were not unfounded. The
Sure.
struggle, the struggle was very
Sure.
much real. But no, it was something that I felt called to do, and I think over time, the purpose that I feel behind it now grew more and matched kind of the passion that I had for it initially.
That's awesome. I mean, I love hearing stories where you can tell your parents, people can tell their parents that they want to go into entertainment, movies, writing, that kind of stuff. And obviously every parent is going to, unless they're in the industry, most parents are going to be like, well, that's really difficult. I don't know. But then
Mhm.
to really kind of get over that hump and have the support and still be able to go through it, because I know there's so many people that I've talked to when I was younger that really wanted to be in entertainment, and we grew up, and we were all kids once. We all had imaginations, and we all let them run wild and pretended to be Power Rangers in the front yard or
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah,
was. I'm a
yeah.
Ninja Turtle. And then, the dream kind of dies for some people. They're like, oh, well, yes, that's really fun, but I'm going to go be an accountant, or I'm going to go be a dentist or something like that. And there's nothing wrong with any of those professions. We need them,
Most
obviously.
people, true.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
I
if your
think,
molar needs fixing, don't come to me. I
yeah,
can't help.
no, not happening. Forget about it. But I love being able to talk to people who are still, pursuing the dream, who aren't, obviously the goal is like, I want to talk to the Chris Hemsworths and all those people, but like,
Mhm.
this is where it all starts. You are where it all starts. This is the beautiful part of it. Now, when we were talking, you've done acting. Let's
Mhm.
talk about that for a second. So, your latest ones, or at least more recent that I've seen, is the Rookie Feds, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, the spin-off show from The Rookie, starring Nathan Fillion, and then SWAT, who had a bunch of people in that show.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
a bunch of people. Mhm.
how did you get those roles? Like, what was the process for people who don't necessarily know how you got into that?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'll take the long form version of that and I'll arrive to where you are. So like I got a degree in theater. I got a
Perfect.
bachelor of fine arts from Howard University. And after that I came back to Los Angeles and really started doing anything I could acting wise.
Yeah.
Student films, short films, commerce, literally anything that I could jump in front of, I really did. And this was before I had an agent or any kind of representation.
Right.
I self-submitted. I worked for free. I was like, "Can I crew on?" I literally was like crew on an independent film, and then was like, "Hey, I act too," and they threw me in a scene.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
and
Grinding.
actually did it up. That's how I ended up in a scene with Ving Rhames, which was like part of how I got my first agent.
That's awesome.
Was that scene, and so I say all that to say that I ended up. I think these recent things are all kind of an accumulation of what comes before, and for me, it's always been how can I think outside of what might be the box to continuously move forward and to not be caught up in what the perception is, but like let me just keep doing the small steps. And so, for example, with the current representation that I have, when I was looking for when I didn't have let me back it up and say for a lot of these roles, like you need representation. For like
Right.
the SWATs and the rookie feds, like you need
Yeah.
an agent or a manager who's going to put you up for those roles because they just aren't open for the general public to say, "Hey, I want to be on TV."
Got it.
And so, in order to kind of get that middleman, quote unquote, if you think of it that way, that cosign, you have to submit to them to say, "Represent me." And at one point, when I didn't have the representation I desired, but I had a lot of work that I've accumulated from self submissions and through relationships and
Right.
things of that nature, projects that I've worked on and put together. I cut together like a 2 minute reel of all the stuff that I had done. I've spent days just sending it out, sending it out, sending it out to anybody, like agents, managers. Like I went down a whole laundry list of hundreds of emails and got like two responses, like literally two.
Okay.
But one of them ended up being my current manager now.
Nice.
And so
How long ago was that?
This was 2017.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, 2018 when I ended up with my current manager now at MGMT Entertainment.
Nice.
And so I ended up, and even after that, there have been goodness, dozens and dozens of auditions that have come and gone that I didn't get, that led to the recent ones that happened. Rookie Feds was the end of last year, and then SWAT was just this year. Was booking those two, and those came about because they sent the audition my way. And these days, because of COVID, as actors, almost everything that we do is self-tape.
Okay.
So you're recording it on your own with hopefully a friend or another actor that you can work with, but you're recording it on your own. You're putting this tape together and you send it to them, and hopefully they see it, are receptive to it, they like it, and the process goes from there. But
Okay.
I think the real answer to how does it happen is like you have to have I think a determination and a resilience to be willing to
There you go.
one, like put yourself out there in a variety of different ways, and then just continue to do that even if you're not getting any indication that you should.
Yep. Yeah.
which is I don't know if that's sensible advice, but it's the real advice. It's like because yeah.
Sure, sure. So you got to have some tough skin. It's got to be a balance between tough skin and I would say knowing not to be overzealous. Kind of a nice balance. So you're gonna come up with a lot of rejections, but you got to be able to face them, not let that kind of bring you down. But then there's the opposite of people who I've seen, not personally, but where it's like they think they're hot shit and they get rejected and take it personally and then become like go to their head in the wrong way. So kind of keep it even cool and
Yeah,
hopefully
yeah, no,
make it through.
yeah. I think that's a great way to sum that up because the ego is a sensitive thing and can be certainly it can take a bruising. And I
Yep.
think at this point, I feel fortunate to have like gone through that to a certain extent to where I shake it off a lot easier because most of the time you don't get the thing that you want in this industry in this game most of the time.
Yeah.
But when you do, it's a lot of fun. It's really
Sure.
great.
Sure.
So,
Which is what I was going to ask you. Like, what was it like, working
yeah,
on
sure,
Rookie Feds and
sure.
SWAT?
Like it's when you get to go on to these sets of shows that are like the bigger productions where they have just resources at their disposal to do so many things. It's so much fun. Like the first time Rookie Feds was the first time I had a stunt double and I lost my mind. I was like, "What? You guys
Yeah.
hired somebody for me? What?"
Get out of
Like
here.
I took a picture with him and everything. Like he looks like me. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like I
That's awesome.
geeked out. Like it is. You geek out about certain things. It's like because it is such a so much of a process to get to that point to when you do get to experience it. It is it's just really special. It's really special. And I don't take any of it for granted for a minute.
That's awesome.
Um,
That's real awesome, man. I love that you have these stories and that you can do it. Is it weird? Like for context, I've known you for like a month. We've interacted on like 4 different days, and I'm just sitting here. I'm just like beaming. I'm like, I'm so proud of this fucking guy. Like you're doing it, man. You're out there. You're making it happen. You're doing that. You're acting. On top of that, you're writing and you're making content. So I want to talk a little bit about how before I get into too much of like the writing and things that you're doing or whatever you can talk about. I want to talk about Unpacked. You were a
yeah,
creator and host of a sketch comedy show, man. Like
yeah,
I grew up in Chicago, so sketch comedy was something that was like part of the culture. Second
of
City
course,
was like
Second City,
huge. So
classic. Yeah.
how did you kind of a two-part what inspired you to do sketch comedy, and then how did you get that started? How does one even start to pitch that and make that a reality?
Mm-hmm. I'll take that. I have a great full circle kind of moment in this.
All for
So
it.
unquestionably, my inspiration was like Keenan Ivory Wayans, Robert Townsend, I'm Gonna Get You Sucker,
Oh yeah.
Hollywood Shuffle, and Living Color. They're definitely my like as a kid, even Leslie Nielsen and like the Naked Gun movies and like
Love
that kind of
those.
comedy was something that I just grew up with. My dad has a great sense of humor, and I think I very much inherited that from him. And so I was inspired by those guys. And I think my start came from just really observing and then thinking about like, well, I should say my first sketches that grew to Unpacked happened 2013, 2014 in the outcome of the Trayvon Martin verdict.
Oh shit.
I wrote a sketch called Two Black Cops in Fergus Sanford. And the sketch was basically about two black cops who essentially are overly aggressive, and they profile this just young innocent white guy, and they comedically do so, and to the point where it escalates where they actually end up killing him. And the thing that I
Shit.
was trying to showcase in the sketch is how, when you put the same kinds of practices on a different face and a different color, then it looks and feels different, and it can be funny, but at the same time, it can be very provocative, and it was, and
Yeah.
some people loved it, some people didn't like it, some people were kind of triggered by it, but that of course was the idea, and of course, and from that, I should say, I kept kind of writing sketches that touched on topics that were divisive and problematic in different ways, whether it was sexuality, whether it was religion, history. Like we wrote a sketch called Jesus Saves the Slaves, about a group of slaves who are introduced to Jesus Christ by their slave master for the first time.
I
And
mean, that
a couple of
sounds
follow-up questions about who's this guy we're supposed to be worshiping. Um, and
that
it's
sounds like an experience right there, man. Shit.
we strive to make it an experience, but it was from writing and creating these sketches and kind of building a small team of folks who worked with us out here in LA,
Right.
that the idea kind of came to me of like, all right, we're doing these sketches, how can we do more with these versus just putting them out? And so the idea for the show came from, all right, let's have a format where we can put a sketch together, but then following that sketch, we have a sit down kind of format panel discussion where we have folks who are intellectuals, entertainers, comedians, etc., who take part in this discussion about what it is that we just watched. And so that kind of was the format for the show. It's kind of like The Daily Show meets, you can think In Living Color or Chappelle Show.
I love In Living Color. I'm going to say that. I grew up on, Saturday Night Live and everything. And then I found In Living Color with Jim Carrey, the Waynes, just everybody. And I was like, this is, because it was so much more hard hitting than anything that was happening in Saturday Night Live. And Saturday Night Live pushed some boundaries here and there. But I mean, In Living Color, man, was fantastic. I was going to ask you about Chappelle's show, because Chappelle is a bit more of a controversial topic nowadays, unfortunately. I loved his Chappelle show. I still quote that, but it seems like, because what Chappelle was doing, at least at the time, was very like, oh, this is what you don't want us to talk about. Well, guess what I'm going to do? And just because the first sketch that came out on TV for that, I think, was the Black White Supremacist.
Black White Supremacist. Yeah.
You watch this and you're like, what is happening on screen? Like, being me, I'm like, am I allowed to laugh at this? Because it's like you
have to question yourself.
It was hilarious, but I was like, oh, that's ridiculous too. To think like if you were to just flip that around and they were white people, it's just like, oh, it suddenly becomes, whoa, wait, these are things that are actually happening in the world. This is a topic that's very real. And at the time, because that was 10, 15 years ago at least, they weren't in the forefront. They weren't being talked about as much, and unfortunately it took, and I'm really not trying to get political here, but it did take some polarizing asshole figure like Trump to put it into perspective that these things are still happening and they're still going on, and it is a problem. So to hear that, even when were you doing what was this, 2014, 2015?
Yeah, that's when we first wrote it, shot it, and put it out, was 2014.
So I mean, like, it's still relevant, and that the show that you were doing, that show even then, like, it's amazing that I'm glad that all of this is still getting content, that you are still making that, and then that there are people still out there telling stories, whether it is a movie, whether it's a sketch comedy, whether it's a show, that it brings more issues to the forefront. It's not all just fun and games and happy-go-lucky times, that we can still do both. I love that idea of unpacking everything you just watched. I think that's a brilliant brilliant idea, because too many times it becomes, just me and my friends, just a group of people watching something on TV and then discussing it from our point of view. And if it's a topic like the Trayvon Martin shooting, or like, white supremacy or slavery, everyone I'm sitting on the couch with is white. So we're not going to have the ability to ask the questions or hear the side of the story that needs to be heard to really get the message across. So I think that was knowing more about Unpacked is a beautiful thing. Is that still going on? Is someone still
Yeah.
helming
No,
that?
we're still look, we have it very much packaged and are still actively pitching it. The time Hollywood is in a tough moment right now, as I'm sure you're aware,
Yeah.
with with the writer's strike, and things have kind of slowed to a slow drip right now. There isn't really a lot
No.
happening on that scale as far as pitching and projects kind of moving forward. But creatively, we're always like writing ideas. I have a group of writers that I work with here and collaborate with, and we have stacks of kind of ideas and sketches about a whole number of things that we've written and that are very much ready to go. And so Unpacked is something that I'm very excited to see move forward.
Yeah.
Kind of the timing is right and finding the right home for it, because it is, I love that you said that, because it's a format that allows for not just entertainment, but for real interaction and hopefully, learning and understanding. I mean, that's really what the
Yeah.
goal is for me as the creator coming from it, is even if I touch a point that triggers someone that feels like a soft, sensitive point, it's like, well, why? What is it about that makes you upset? Let's dig into it so that we can understand why, so that perhaps from what might be perhaps outrage at first, you can then understand what the root of that is, and perhaps we can better understand each other afterwards. I think that
Yes. More
too
of
often,
that.
yeah, too often for risk of being offensive, we aren't able to truly engage with where we are. And I think one thing I love about sketch comedy is that it can be ridiculous, it can be over the line, it can be outrageous for the sake of a satirical point. And then being able to really talk about it afterwards kind of brings home what the reality is as well. And the full circle I was going to say about it was, so I'm one of my good friends and creative collaborators is Greg Waynes. He and I did a TV show in 2013. Fast forward, we created a show together, and we met with his uncle Keenan, and I got a chance
Shit.
to actually.
I have
By this
goosebumps right
time,
now. You
no,
say
no,
Keenan
no.
Ivory Wayans, and I'm like,
It was great. By this time, we had shot the show, and I was actively pitching it just before the Fox Soul deal had happened, and I was trying to find a home for it, and I got a chance to pitch it to him and show it to him, and tell him how inspired I was by everything that he had done, and
what did
it
he think of
was.
it?
Oh, he enjoyed it. He really liked it. He did. Now he didn't feel like it was for him in that moment, and at the
Sure.
time, I had another. It's funny. The executive producer, Bentley Kyle Evans, who I gotten to give me some of the money to shoot the show, he goes back with Keenan, and so he was like, "Wait, so is he producing it? Or are you looking for a producer?" And so he ended up not being a part of coming on to the project, but like being able to show it to him and having him laugh at some of what we did, and to
Yeah.
like actually give his blessing for it, was like it was one of the best moments. It genuinely was
Yeah.
like. And yeah, yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's super cool. I'm a nerd, so I just love hearing stories about that shit where you're just like you meeting like celebrities and like people that inspired you. So like I geek out. Like I try
No,
not
it's
to
a
because I'm
blessing, man.
because I gotta
Yeah.
like maintain composure and keep talking and moving it forward. But I'm like, oh my god, tell me more about Keenan Waynes. No, so uh, you mentioned Hollywood being in a very weird time right now with the strike. Are you? Because I wanted to talk to you about that. Are you part
Yeah.
of the WGA? Are you
I'm not
unionized?
presently a member of the WGA. However, I'm a member of SAG, and I've the
Sure.
past several weeks I've been on the picket lines,
That's awesome,
with
man.
brothers and sisters of the WGA, because I think as creatives, it's important for us to stand in solidarity, because we really are all in this together. Of course, we're in different facets of this creative process, but it's essential that we realized that we are certainly allies and facing the same issues. And the SAG contract is up for negotiation next month. Yeah, next month. And
Okay.
so we're going to be dealing with the same fight when it comes to the streaming and residuals and the other things that the
Yeah.
WGA is fighting for now. So no, solidarity is really everything right now when it comes to keeping creative control and um, just the realizing just where the money goes and who gets the biggest piece of that.
Yeah.
Because it's not a money problem, it's a distribution problem. It's not that
Right.
it's a matter of, the CEO pay is astronomical when you think about how that could be better divided and shared in order to better benefit everybody involved, not to mention the folks who really are the inspiration for these ideas and these stories that
Yeah.
we love.
And
Um,
like I didn't know a ton about the strike. I was like, okay, I'm whenever I heard that there was a strike, what, 2007, 2008. And I was like, yeah, like I'm all for the writers getting equal pay. I don't know what it was. I couldn't tell you, but I was listening to Kevin Smith, his Fat Man Beyond
mm,
podcast, and Mark Bernardin, who is a writer and does a bunch of different stuff, wrote on like Castle Rock and things like that. He just took the time. He's like, I'm just going to tell you about the strike and what's happening,
mm,
and then broke it
mm,
down for me. And hearing about it, like I was talking to someone else kind of about it, and not even about it, but just a conversation that I had months ago is exactly what's happening right now, because I didn't know. So if I'm going to do the really short version of this, is
yeah.
essentially back in like 80s, 90s, early 2000s, pre Netflix and streaming, when you would write a show, if they took your idea for the script and it made it to air, essentially you would, that person, every time it aired on a rerun, every time it aired in syndication, every time it aired anywhere, there would be a percentage, a dollar amount, or whatever it is that gets paid out to that individual and or other individuals that work on it.
Mhm.
So you could write on a show, they could give you 20 grand. Here's your little bit for that. But every time it airs, you get, this, and this. So then you have a sustainability within the industry. And then when Netflix sort of kind of came around, or the rest of them, not just Netflix, Amazon and HBO and all that, they suddenly were like, okay, well, it's only here. We're not airing it on Fox. Reruns don't air later on FX or on Nick at Night or whatever the heck it might be. So we're going to give you a larger upfront fee, and that's it. Have a good day. So basically, you get paid for writing some words, and then every time it gets replayed, someone makes money, but it's not the writers. It's not the people who worked on the show. It's the people who, were behind the scenes producing. It's people who own Netflix. It's people who, own Amazon. So there's money out there to be had, to be shared
Mhm.
amongst writers and everyone in that position, but it's not getting paid out because of this new streaming concept. So for anyone who didn't know, that was the breakdown. And when I learned about it, I was like, that needs to be fixed. Like, and I never thought about it, but I was having a conversation about like, oh, you can, sell a script to Netflix, and you're like, you think you made it? I did it. I sold my show.
Ta-da! I'm here.
They may not do anything with it, but you sold them this script and you made money, but you ain't making a dime after that. And I never thought about that until now. And I'm like, that's awful. So to anyone who's a writer, to all those people, I know I can say here at the Modern Nerd that we all stand behind you. And I know my co-hosts who are obviously on the main show, they will definitely stand behind you for sure. So, I hope this all gets settled. It's funny because someone was like, oh, the writers, the heads of these studios are all going to be like, oh, they'll cave in, they need the work and blah blah blah. The fans are going to turn on the writers. Motherfucker, do you know how large your catalog is? We're going to spend the next, like, there's so much content out there for us to watch that you've already put out, that we're not going to get tired of watching something. You know what I mean? Like, oh no, Netflix is a huge library. By the time I'm worn out, it'll be years from now.
Mm,
We're not going to wear out first. I stand with the writers.
mm,
Pay
mm,
them their money. you're going to start losing money because you're not going to make any new content. You're not going to get any new subscribers. You're going to start losing subscribers because there's nothing there. They're going to jump ship and go work some. So it's just like, I don't know who these people think they are. They're just greedy, and it's depressing. And
It's literally just greed, and it's now we're talking about it now in relation to the entertainment industry, but we see it in so many of our industries in this country where large corporate entities are greedy and don't want to empower workers and don't want to allow workers to have basic rights and basic protections and collective bargaining. And we're seeing it across from the service industry to teachers to it's like I said, just across industries. And it's just a matter of wild and uninhibited greed meeting people saying, hey, you know what? Why don't you help us maintain in an economy that is continuing to become more difficult to stay afloat in? And you all are doing amazingly well. Even though, Netflix won't open up its books and show exactly who watches what, because then, of course, we'll know what those real numbers are. We do know how much their CEO makes. And it's like, you guys are doing extremely well. Why don't you just share? We don't, the need to be that greedy just doesn't have to exist.
It's not like they're saying, give us all your money. You know what I mean? It's like, just make it fair. It's to me, there's like, you were saying it's across all industries, teachers, and it's at the music industry is atrocious. I've known people in that, and I'm like, I don't know how any musician makes any money whatsoever, which I'm not even going to get into right now because we could spend the next 4 hours talking about that. My sister's a teacher, and it's it's the saddest thing ever. I love her to death. She does the best work, and I want her.
Teachers they do the precious work, and
they
the thing
make
is, you put a price tag on it.
No, they make you, they make me, they make everyone else. They're the building blocks. It's absurd. There was one point in time, I was an optician for the last 10 years, and as a manager I made more money than my sister. And I was like, that makes no sense to me. I felt so bad. I felt so guilty that I was like, I'm working my ass off, so I'm still gonna,
sure,
my
not that you want a hard working
gonna buy my stuff, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sometimes, don't ask my employees. But anyway, no. But I felt bad. And to say that it to try and just get on equal grounds, like that sounds so much like another topic that it's depressing. I can't help it, because when you were like, oh, we just want a little bit more, it's like the Black Lives Matter movement to me, because the one word there I get so angry when I start talking about this, because I don't understand how there's so many problems in this world, and I'm not going to sit on this forever, but the words are Black Lives Matter, not matter more, not more important than you. Just want some equality. Human beings are all on this planet. We all walk the same earth. We share this planet, and we need to live together and be respectful and kind, and everything will be fine. The fact that there's these atrocities happening is unbelievable, and it breaks my heart every day. And it's sad because you hear about, like, oh, there was another school shooting, and there's been so many in this country that it's almost desensitized us to it. Like, I try not to listen to the news, because then I'll just be upset and sad. My wife does all the time, God bless her, and I love her to death, but she gets so angry, and she has every right to be angry that these things are happening. And so, to tie this in, to not just go on a political rampage here, to know that there are people in this world that are doing work in the entertainment industry to entertain you first and foremost, but to also bring a message, to bring something to light, to have it be like, maybe you can learn something. If one person learns something new from Unpacked, that is a huge win. Like, if one person listens to this show that I record with you and goes, my God, that guy's doing some good work, and I feel like I've done a win, because I want your story to get out there. That's why I do these interviews. That's why I do the Versus series, is to just tell stories. If you're white, black, male, female, trans, gay, straight, non-binary, I want your story. I want to know more about Hadi Williams, right now. And it broke my heart, but to hear all of these atrocities. But I'm so happy and so glad that you are out here writing and bringing truth to the stage, bringing truth to the camera, bringing this to light, and being entertaining and fun and funny and serious in all these things, because I'm an advocate of everything can be entertaining, everything can have a fun or funny spin to it. Now there's some things you just don't joke about, but I love that you are able to take something like the skit you were talking about, the Trayvon Martin skit, where it's two black cops and they profiled a white cop, and make it, yes, there's a couple of quips probably in there, but the overall impact of it is a little bit more serious. So for me personally, I can speak for myself. Thank you for doing all of that.
Man,
And cool.
you're welcome. I received that wholeheartedly, because it's kind of like my version of, in lieu of like grabbing a megaphone and like angrily yelling on a street
Yeah.
corner somewhere, it's like, okay, where can I take this and try to put it into something that feels like it can be digestible and hopefully productive? Because I think the reality is there are a number of things, we could go down the list, that I think we are rightfully, your wife is rightfully upset, that we all who are aware are rightfully upset and angry and emotional about, because there's something in us that says, wait, there's a decency and fairness that we could be existing within, but for any number of reasons we are not. And and there are forces at play that don't seem, and the folks that we empower to help us get closer to that don't seem to be invested in doing so to the degree that's satisfying for us.
Yeah.
And that's really frustrating,
Mhm.
especially when we're faced daily with the human cost of that. And so it's like, all right, what do we do with all of that, short of like you said, just where do you take that? Where do you place that? And I think for me, because I love comedy, I love storytelling, and I love the power that it can have, and the transformative power that it can have, and the power that it's had on me. It's like, all right, this is a way to funnel it into through that medium, and then hopefully come out with something that moves in some way, shape, or form, moves closer to that place where, yeah, it is a safer and more humane existence for literally everyone.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, we're so freaking tribal these days. And of course, tribalism is just an aspect of human nature, but
Fair.
it's just so hyperbolic these days that it's literally killing us. And so
Literally.
the hope and the desire and the aspiration is to take the things that I love and that I enjoy and that I have a talent for, and put those to use in service of what can be, like I said, moving towards a space that is more, just more, let's just say better, for lack
Yes.
of a better word in that sense. It's,
Better.
more peaceful, more understanding, and allows for a space for us to be more caring to one another, honestly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I agree, and I'm glad that you're doing the work, and I can do my part to try and get that out through my medium. So
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
happy
That's the
here.
thing. It's like we all can, in the different
Yeah.
ways, in the various ways in which we may have the ability to do so. I think we all can.
Yeah. I'll stand on my tiny little soapbox that is my podcast here, and
Hey, all
shout
right.
it as loud as I can.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
not to completely shift the topic, but we were on the topic of writing and all that kind of stuff, and we're not winding down, but is there, because I didn't ask you this before, so I'm going to kind of be all kind of shadowy and mysterious about my question. Is there anything you're working on now that you can talk about that is in line with what we've been discussing?
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Something we
absolutely.
talked about before.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I don't know if
That
you can talk about it. I don't know what the
may have
words.
come up before. Yeah, absolutely, man. So there is a project that I'm very excited about that I've been working on for some years now. It's called Unconquered. And it is a story that is it's so American, honestly, for several reasons. But so essentially, it's about a man named John Horse. He's the protagonist in the story. He is half Black, half Seminole. It's set in the time before the Civil War, 1830s in Florida. This is a time when the Native American Seminole were prosperous in Florida, and they allowed for enslaved folks who had fled bondage from Alabama, from Georgia, from other places. They fled south as opposed to going north. And when they fled south into kind of like the marshes and swamps of Florida, they often would meet and settle with the Seminole who welcomed them, who did not, contrary to the time and certainly contrary to other Native American tribes at the time, they did not believe in this American chattel slavery. And so they formed cooperative communities over time. Where there was a sharing of culture, of language. Oftentimes there was intermarriage as well. And of course, there were Southern slave owners who didn't like this at all. And so
You don't say.
you don't say. You want not too fond of. And so so essentially in 1830, Andrew Jackson, president at the time, he signed the Indian Removal Act, which is essentially how they were able to they legitimized the removal of what was called the five civilized tribes of the time, which led to the Trail of Tears, which many of us are familiar with. But it also led to the forced removal of the Seminole from Florida. However, the Seminole were the only tribe that basically said, we're not going. And so they were trying to re-enslave the Black folks that had settled with them, as well as remove them from their land. And so when they said that they weren't going, there were skirmishes that ultimately led to a series of what came to be known as the Seminole Wars. And what often isn't told in history about the Seminole Wars, specifically the Second Seminole War from 1835 to 1842, was the prominent role that these Black folks played in that. And John Horse, he rose to be one of the leaders in these uprisings against the U.S. Army, and these Southern slave owners were trying to recapture them. There were more than 21 sugar plantations that were raided and destroyed in Florida. As a result of this, there was just all kinds of activity that was meant to, that they did to really just stand up and to say that, no, we have a right to exist, to exist here in our home. And so I first heard about this story back in 2016, which was very late, by the way. I'd never heard of this my entire life.
And you told me a couple weeks ago. So, you know what I mean?
Like, and so this is just, I'll jump to how it makes me feel about Florida and the time, especially now, and what they're doing with their education system. And it's just so telling. But I hadn't heard about it then. But through social media, I came to hear the story, and I was fascinated by it. And so I just kind of went down a rabbit hole of really investigating it and learning about it. And I decided that this story is amazing. Somebody's tried to write about this. Someone's told the story, and I just looked around and I didn't see it. And so kind of decided to try to write it myself. I've written a lot of comedy stuff before, and this is kind of like my first foray into something more dramatic. But so began the process of writing the script. And then from there, wrote the feature script. By the time I kind of had it honed and was kind of submitting it around town here, submitting it to production companies and then screenplay competitions, I won some awards for the screenplay. But because of the price tag for, I think, producing it, and it didn't move in the way that I wanted to. And so I basically decided to write and produce a short film version of that story. So I got an amazing producing partner, Devin Renee, who's a Full Sail graduate. We shout out to Full Sail.
Shout out to Devin. She'll be on here. You guys get to hear her story eventually. So shout out to Devin.
Wonderful. And so we partnered on creating the story, and so we did. We pulled it together and we shot it. We're in post-production now. The plan is to have it. The short film will be submitted to film festivals in the coming year. So hopefully by 2024, we'll be going around the country and showing the film and really talking about the history and the story and really shining a light on. I think what is most moving about it to me is the collaboration between Indigenous and Black folks in a way that we just haven't heard about or seen told on screen, and really haven't really talked about historically much at all,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately. And I think that that's certainly intentional as well. And so it's
Unfortunately.
it's very much a story that I've just come to be so passionate about telling and creating, and I think is just so vital, especially now at a time where Florida specifically, and certainly Florida's governor specifically, is working really hard to try to kind of erase and narrow the frame of what their education is to really diminish the contributions of folks that they deem to be not worth hearing from. And so I think that this story is such so vital, so much more vital now. And so
Yeah.
yeah. So that
Yeah.
one it's coming. That one is coming. It's called Unconquered. And it's really, man, it's like it's an epic, is really what it is. It is like Braveheart level epic, but with a story that centers, Black and Indigenous characters who are fighting for their freedom and who are not just fighting for their freedom, but living in a way that they choose to. And I
Yeah.
think it's so funny how we can live in a country where, like, for example, Florida, you can look at Ocala or Tallahassee or so many different places, even Miami. These are all Native American names that we just don't think of. Most people
Yeah.
don't know that these are Native American names that we're calling these places. This history is kind of just hidden from us. And so I think we need to take the opportunity to learn and understand that, it's so that we can just better appreciate one another and our place in society today. The history is not some, I don't know, thing in the past. It's very much the story of change and how we come to be. And so I think being able to highlight that is crucially important, because because it's the story of I think who we
Story of
are,
America.
who we are, the good
Yeah.
things and the bad things, but also it's like, let's be honest about it and tell it all, so that when someone does try to come and rewrite their version of it and say, well, no, it wasn't slavery, it was just forced, there were forced servants, and it was like, no, 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 no,
It's
actually,
the same thing
no, no,
there,
no, no,
fella.
no, no, no,
And
actually, no, 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 it wasn't so bad. There was 100% employment. Hey, everyone, it was, it wasn't that. It was free housing. Come on, come on.
Jesus. It's free
And
housing.
so,
How can you not like
yeah,
that?
yeah,
Jesus.
come on, man. What are you so upset about? And
Oh my God.
so we need to have, when people literally say things like that, I think it's important for us to have context. And unfortunately, these days, media, whether it be social media or movies and film and TV, educate people, sometimes more so than our actual education system. And so,
It's definitely.
yeah, that's why I think it's so important to have stories like that told.
Yeah. And I remember that when I mean, I know you told me all this other accolades that you've done, but when you told me this, I was like, I want to watch this movie. I want to learn more about this moment. I want to talk to you more. It was that really triggered me to be like, oh my God, you're not just like, I'm making fun things and comedy and stuff. I'm doing whatever. And I'm like, that's cool. I guess you won
Mm.
some awards, but this is cool stuff. Like I love hearing those types of things. Like I at one point I worked at Make It a Blockbuster Night. I worked there
Hey,
and I
that's a
watched.
classic shirt right there.
Right, I mean, it's Target. They came out with it this year, you know what I mean?
Oh,
So whatever.
leave it to Target. Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember being the guy who would watch all these indie films and just all the time, because I mean, as an employee, you could watch anything you want. You basically you got 10 free a week, but it's unlimited. You could do whatever you want. Nobody gave a shit. That's why they're not in business anymore. You want it, you got it. I could tell you some stories, man. But so I've seen so many different movies, and then obviously as of lately it's just been like I'm just gonna watch an action movie and do nothing, because that's kind of what it is. Now I want to talk about that for a second here, but I want to talk about because we're almost out of time, but we got a few more minutes. But so you said you okay, wait, I got a couple of random questions. So speaking of taking this show, this movie of yours, and you want to bring it to the different festivals, film festivals around the country, around the area, which I'm very excited for. And if you ever make it to South by or anywhere near Austin, there's other Austin film festivals. If you don't let me know, I'm gonna be pissed. But what?
I said I would not dare not inform.
We gonna have words. No, we did you ever think, I don't know where you are in the process with Unpacked at the moment. I know it had its moment on Fox Soul, but would you consider doing that as like a traveling troupe or anything like that? Is that something you have considered as like a last, just to get it out there, if nothing else comes of it? Would you take that to the stage and bring it around and do live questions and do all that kind of stuff?
That's what, not exactly like that. What I did have conversations about and may still return to was just producing, independently producing more episodes.
Mhm.
Um, excuse me, which is kind of like what I did before, where I, rented out the space, got all the crew, got the audience, and just produced the show. And that is, it's a, more labor intensive process, but it's like, I get to control all aspects of it. And so I've had conversations about doing that again, but not really traveling. That's really interesting. I haven't thought of it in that way.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
I just thought, because like it lends itself to that kind of medium, because then you know you can choose where you want it to go, who gets to see it, not like who, like, no, you don't get to watch it, fuck you, you're too white, you son of
Mm.
a bitch, and I don't want to talk to you. No, but like, because then if, like, obviously the best scenario, best case scenario, is it gets picked up and it's on a network somewhere and you can do them, a bunch
Mm.
of episodes and stuff like that. But with the discussion part of it, like you could bring it to Austin, Florida, Chicago, Houston, New
Mm.
York,
Mm.
wherever. And so I was wondering if that came across. So hey, if it works out that way, I'm gonna just take a little producing credit on
Take a
that and
little
call
side.
it a
Look,
day.
you've inspired, like you've inspired it now. I'm like, no, yeah, I could
Yeah,
travel.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Tim who? There's no guy. I don't know what you're talking about. He didn't do anything. I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting piece, not to like brainstorm live on the podcast here. But the hell were we talking about? The movie.
No, I
Um,
love, like, yeah.
so then with uh who?
No, you
Yeah,
had a couple random questions, and then we got into the traveling, and I was like, yeah, that's an
yeah,
idea. I hadn't
yeah. Um,
really
okay, so
given my
here
full.
with being immersed in seeing how the bread is made, seeing how everything is done behind the scenes.
Mhm.
Um, you're on set, you get to see how the movie's made and all that stuff. TV show is made, all those things. When you watch something, when you sit down and turn on The Last of Us, when you sit down and pop in, your favorite drama or something, are you looking at it in a different light? Are you still able to enjoy things now in the same light that you were 20 years ago before you were really deep into the industry? The young fresh-faced Hottie Williams watches, a cliffhanger in 1993, and it's like, oh, that's amazing! Look at the special effects, Sly. I love you. Hey. And then now, is it the same kind of eyes, or are you picking it
No,
apart?
it's not. It's not, but it hasn't. It's not in the way that I think you might think. I don't watch it in the same way at all. Um, but I think I watch it with a closer eye, because I understand how it does come together and how it's made. And when I see it like done really well, I'm even that much more impressed by it because I understand how hard it can be and how
Sure.
difficult and challenging it can be for any number of reasons. So when it's like a scene like moves me, or if I, watch something, I'm like, oh shit, how did they just do that? Or even something I watch and I'm like, I don't quite understand how that happened, or like the way in which a sequence might be edited together. I'm like, damn, I want to be able to do something like that. I'm still absolutely moved, and it honestly makes me want to, yeah, get to the point where I can create and bring my ideas to life in a way that can have a similar kind of impact.
Sure.
Um, so it only serves as like seeing how the sausage is made only makes me want to
That's
make
the
better
term.
sausage.
Son of a bitch. The sausage.
I'm a vegetarian, but still,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
how the sausage is made only makes me want to,
Oh
make,
man.
yeah,
Uh,
make better sausage,
and then
and
you're not going to
put
have the
better
best time in
spices.
Austin.
You say I'm gonna
You
have the best time in Austin?
No, if you come to Austin and South by, you're not going to have the best time because there's so much barbecue everywhere, and it's so amazing. So I'm sorry you miss out on all that, but more for me. But
Hey,
that's okay.
look, I won't mind passing it to you.
There
Enjoy
you go. There you
thoroughly.
go. There you go.
Yeah, your colon will thank you.
Yeah, no, it won't. No, it won't. Not at all. It hates me. But anyway, the another random question that I'm
Yeah.
trying to ask people as well is, uh, well, actually, you're the first actor I've had on here, or anyone in that side, but anyone who is in there, I want to ask this question. Obviously, because the history of my show is comic book and nerd related. That's my jam, obviously, from the decorum. Do you? I mean, Marvel gives you a call next week and says, we want you to be obscure character number 7. I mean, is that something that like you strive for, or is it just like are you just happy staying in your not staying in your lane, but are you happy in like the comedy and drama and telling your stories and getting your message, or are you like shit? I would gladly do superhero or blockbuster action films.
Mhm. Um, yeah, I mean, my short answer is yeah. I'm very much, I'm very much a,
No, fuck you. No.
yeah. No, I want to self-produce forever.
Yeah, money. I don't need that.
The struggle tastes so good. No, I'm very much, still a working actor, and so I would, depending on what it is, of course, I would love to be a part of some of these larger franchises that I'm certainly a fan of. Also, I think Marvel has done some incredible things as far as
Yeah,
bringing, the comic book into the movie space and the way in which it's just kind of exploded.
yeah.
So yeah, I would be very much excited to be a part of it. Like in any number of franchises I could think of, like, oh yeah, I would love to slide in here somewhere. I think that it's just another canvas in which they tell a story. I think that comic books and superheroes and villains, it's like you want to get. I mean, I don't know if you get psychological into it
Oh, I
with the
definitely do.
show. It's like I think that it speaks to so much of the human experience and the good and evil, quote unquote, that lives in all of us.
Yeah.
And you know,
This one alone, X-Men alone, is like
yeah.
it's so funny because there was so many things that were like written about that I keep reading about because I still read, and X-Men historically has been muddled down like they do a billion titles on in the comics, so it's hard to follow, but they've changed all these characters. They've made, not changed, but like Bobby Drake, Iceman, is gay, and Jubilee was a vampire, and another thing, and like and they're all these, they were all at one point, everyone was a metaphor for minority struggle, or and originally, honestly, when it was written, it was like the Jewish struggle as well, because Stan Lee was Jewish and everything. So, and then everyone's like, stop making these characters woke,
Yeah.
dude. If you have gone since 1963 thinking that
Right.
X-Men is not woke, you are the problem. Like you are the problem in this world, because they are the
Mhm.
definition of nerdy wokeness. So which I thought was, I read that and I'm just like, I just smile because I'm like, you're an idiot. It's just, you're dumb. It's fun. You
Yeah.
can't you
Like
can't fix stupid. So
man, that's the unfortunate truth. We tried.
we
We
try.
tried.
We'll try. We
Yeah.
try. All right, we're running out of time, but I want to
Mm.
give you the time. What do you got going on? Where can everybody find you? What are your socials? Do you have anything coming out soon that people can watch? Is there anything happening? Tell me what's going on in your life of Hottie Williams?
Yeah. I mean, my socials are easy. I'm easy to find. I'm at Hottie Williams basically on everything.
Simple.
Hari Williams. I have I in addition to the projects that are like more long form that I'm working on, like the film, like I still do like short form sketch stuff that I'll just put out that's just for social media, that's for like Instagram, and I kind of just slid into TikTok recently, and
Same.
I have I have a YouTube channel where I'll put other stuff that like I don't necessarily have a home for, or isn't part of something bigger, and so I kind of constantly like feeding that, and especially when it comes to sketch stuff that's like that deals with a current topic.
Yep.
I'll just kind of shoot something quick and put it out. So I'm definitely always kind of feeding that and putting stuff out there. What I have upcoming. I'm shooting a project next month that I'm excited about. It's like a sci-fi VR film.
Oh,
Um,
you had me at sci-fi, my friend.
yeah, it's cool. It's actually it's really cool. It kind of just came to me, and I'm very blessed to be a part of it. It's kind of takes place in a futuristic kind of dystopian world where we have AI like kind of humanoids that exist, and serve a number of functions, but one of them is as sex workers. And so
All right.
it's kind of
That's
about the
interesting.
yeah, I get to play a detective who's kind of on a case looking for a missing cop, and kind of like his last known whereabouts may be buried in like the memory files of one of these AI kind of sex robots. But then while at the same time it kind of puts into question the autonomy of this AI, and kind of her becoming her own individual and entity and owning her own person, as opposed to being just used and controlled, and peddled out and sold. So um,
Yeah, that sounds
it's
super
cool.
interesting.
It is. It's cool. It's cool. It's
You got to let me
called.
know when that comes out, man. I want to check that out.
Yeah, yeah,
Shit.
absolutely, absolutely. It's I'm excited to share it. There's a really cool creative team. The writer director's name is Charles Huddleston, and they've done some cool work before, and so I'm yeah excited to be a part of that. But I'll be filming that next month.
Nice. Oh, I mean, dude, I'm so excited for you, man. I hope you keep working. I hope you get lots of work. I hope all of your projects succeed. I want everything of yours to be seen, man, because and like I said, man, unfortunately, we're coming to the end here, but we could go on for hours
Oh
and hours
yeah.
and hours. We didn't even talk about half the things we talked. Well, I wanted to talk about because we talked about so many emotional things. I wanted to talk about like more comic book movies and everything
Mm.
and anything like that. The last question I generally try and ask is, what are you watching? Are you watching any shows? Anything you recommend to people? What do you? That's what you know. What are you watching? What are you playing? What are you doing?
Yeah, I watch a collection of things. I watch for sure some of the more popular things like Ted Lasso. I enjoy. I think
Ooh,
it's sweet. It's heartwarming. I think Succession is really sharp, and I watched that. But then I watched Netflix did a docu series. I think that Jada Pinkett Smith produced on like African queens,
heard
and
of
they
that?
did one on Queen Njinga that I watched just a little while ago that I thought was really well done. That was like
Nice.
part dramatic reenactment, part like historian kind of retelling, and I thought that was really good. So it's like my taste like really goes from like geez, even like Rick and Morty, like I love and I think it's hilarious. But
Yep.
then I'm also watching like I'll sit and watch like a nature documentary in a second.
Oh, easily.
And
All the BBC stuff, man. When I lived in England, I was spoiled. Just all there's
Steve
all it's
Attenborough,
all BBC.
Attenborough, man,
Oh,
he's
oh.
such a treasure. He's I love this guy.
Mm. And it's so good. Did you see I think it's See How They Fall?
Mm.
With Sam, I think that's what it's called. It's Sam Rockwell and Saoirse Ronan, and he's like he's the British
Oh, the
detective.
detective. It was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
it was HBO. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
It was
yeah, yeah.
HBO Max. I want to say
I
it was on.
wanna something like that. Did you see that?
I've not seen it, but I know she's like playing his. She's like
The rookie cop, the beat
yeah,
cop or
yeah, the
whatever.
rookie cop. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
it's about it's about a play, and I don't remember the name of the play, but David Attenborough was the when he was young was the star of the play. So you have some actor playing a young version of David Attenborough in the movie. And I
Ah,
was like, oh, that's good. I
that's
like that. Oh,
good.
he grows up to be the old guy that I listen to
Yeah,
all the
you
time on the stuff. Yeah.
like-
But yeah, no, it was good. I mean, perspectively, it may not be as good as some of the rest I was thinking, but I watched like three noir detective movies in a row, kind of. I watched Amsterdam, which was god awful. And
I know
then
what you're talking about. I didn't watch with Christian Bale and
yeah,
yeah,
Bale
John.
was great as always, but like
Mhm.
just the movie was.
The story seemed a little just from the trailer. I was like, what's
I was
happening?
I was intrigued, and then we watched it, and I was like, those were three different movies throughout. Each act was its own movie, and that made no sense. But then I watched the one with Sam Rockwell, who is an underrated genius.
Incredible.
And then I watched Glass Onion. So like they're all like little like who
Right.
done it detective
Yeah,
movies, and I
yeah.
liked Glass Onion the most. But I think for like a smaller production one, the Sam Rockwell movie was excellent. So
I'll check it out.
yeah.
I will check it out. Just for a throwback detective one, in preparation for the role that I'm doing, I watched The Big Sleep.
Ooh,
Um,
classic.
it was like, it took me back. I
Yeah,
yeah, the another, it's a gem, vintage gem.
yeah. I had an idea for a noir kind of detective show because I wrote comic books at one point, and it was convoluted and whatever, and I did all self-produced, and then I was going to write one about like a noir, and the thing was, how everybody is like, oh, noir is a little cliche. I was going to like lean into the cliches and just
Oh
really
yeah.
make them over accentuated, almost satirical, to a point where it's like, oh, okay, it's not necessarily taking itself too funny or too seriously. But then I was like, but I want this story to still kind of hold its own, like The Princess Bride. Like I feel like that's its own topic of movies, is not just
Mhm.
satire, but like serious satire. Princess Bride, Last Action Hero, Galaxy Quest, like those types of movies that are like absolutely poking fun at a genre, but are actually better versions of those movies in that genre. So that's a whole thing, but I can get into that another time. There's an old episode that I talked about, so you can go back and watch it. I believe it's audio only on Spotify, The Modern Nerd. So um yeah, yeah. I may
Nice.
have to run that by you at some point. Anyway, um,
Absolutely will. I'm very much all ears for it.
yeah, definitely. So, check him out. Check out all the socials at Hottie Williams, Hari Williams. If you can't spell Williams, you're don't know why you're watching
And
my
if you,
show.
and
No, I'm
oh, I
kidding.
should have said also for the Unpacked,
Oh
it's
yeah.
at Unpacked TV, and
Oh, you can
um,
watch all the old episodes.
yeah, you can watch clips, you can watch episodes,
Nice.
and you can follow if you're interested in more about Unconquered. That is also at Unconquered Film.
Yeah.
We have behind the scenes photos,
Ooh.
makings of. We're going to be doing as we're going to be releasing the trailer soon. So follow it,
Well,
and we'll have a bunch of new stuff that'll be going up there.
I'll be right there. I'll be your first new follower later today. I
Sweet.
guarantee it. Hell yeah. So this has been a blast, man. And again, I want to do this again because I want to. We got real deep on this one, and I loved every second of it. It made me feel connected. In there, not empowered. I don't want that word. I don't like that right now. But I felt good to talk to you about a lot of these different topics that we were going through, and it was very nice. And but I want to get you back on here in the future. Obviously, if you'll
Yeah, and I look.
grace me with your presence.
We have to find a next new reason when some of these things are coming out. We have some exciting new things to discuss. I would love to be able to
Yeah.
come.
And look, if you want to guest on the main show, man, and just give us your opinions on comic book movies that come out after you watch them, I'd love to have you on and do stuff like that, and just do more, because I want more opinions. Too many times I've gotten off the show and I've been like, how was it? And she's like, you're all white and one Asian dude. And I'm like, okay, fine, I get it, but like I don't we want more. So I brought my wife and my buddy's girlfriend in. They did an episode with us.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
nice.
it was the Shazam 2 review, so there really wasn't much to be said about that, but I want more diversity in my podcast. I want more people's opinions to make a more well-rounded conversation. So I would love to have you back. As always, to the viewers out there, if you had a good time, this has been The Modern Nerd, and thank you for watching.